Vice President Oshibajo visits Games Village, Abuja, emphasizing President Buhari's message on keeping Nigeria on the right track to progress.
Now I want to see how it go help common man, anybody where they work, where they try to look for work, they look for how it go help them.
Federal government commences zinc processing plant in Ebonyi, optimistic of project generating jobs and revenue for the government.
Information Minister Lai Mohammed to Inspector General of Police place mechanism to contain criminality in any form in Kwara State.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we will continue our review of major issues discussed on the program in the outgoing year.
Now, it is a tradition for us on Good Morning Nigeria to review major issues discussed as the year winds down.
You are indeed right, Ruth. This tradition has been sustained over the years. So this year is not an exception, as we started the review yesterday with some of the editions bordering on several agenda-setting topics.
And no doubt the year 2018 was full of activities, and the many occurrences captured the attention of NTA's flagship program, Good Morning Nigeria. So today's edition of the program is the second of the end of the year review.
All right, and today's outlook will bring on the invasion of the Senate. We will wade into the NFF crisis, just as we explored the electoral commissions and local government elections. The year also saw Good Morning Nigeria taking a look at the gale of impeachments and defections.
Yes, indeed. And aside from excerpts on politics and allied matters, we also got some individuals who had experienced certain situations, from drugs to sexual harassment and other forms of violence, to share with Nigerians to serve as lesson or deterrent for those who want to venture into such acts. Now, let me ask you this question. Just how much sleep do we need? Kieran, how much sleep do you need?
Well, 6 hours, 8 hours if you can.
Okay, now that's one question everyone should ask oneself.
Well, Ruth, that and those earlier listed are just sizzling tips to recall the memorable outings on our program, and I will bring lots more in the review editions of Good Morning Nigeria to end the year 2018. I am Kieran Umayo. Thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria, beaming live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority.
And I am Ruth Aguele. We shall also bring our companion segments, which include newspaper review, business, sports, and foreign news. But let's take the AM news with Comfort Amadou. Comfort, good morning. Compliments of the season.
Good morning, Ruth and Kieran. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. Now, in continuation of visit to families in Abuja, Vice President Yemi Oshibajo this Thursday had chat with residents of the Games Village, emphasizing President Buhari's determination to ensure that the country remains on the right track to progress.
Now I want to see how it go help common man, anybody where they work, where they try to look for work, they look for how it go help them, how they go help them, make them find work, make them find money, do their work.
The State House has faulted the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar's statement in which he described President Buhari's 2019 budget proposal as fundamentally flawed and failing to address current realities. In a statement by the Special Advisor to the President, Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina says that the PDP presidential candidate, among other things, faults the provision of 305 billion naira for NNPC's costs on the recovery on petroleum products, but did not say exactly what his administration would do about petroleum pricing. However, his campaign organization had earlier promised to reduce the price of petrol to 87 naira, which the APC has said would result in higher subsidy provision if his administration gets into power. The statement also said that without doubt, the country faces significant fiscal challenges being addressed by the present administration. And the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development commenced work for the construction of zinc processing plant in Uburu Community, Ebonyi State. Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Abubakar Bawa Buhari, who performed the groundbreaking, is optimistic that the project would generate jobs and revenue for the government.
As something that is there to our diversification agenda. This, what we are doing today here, further goes to underscore what President Muhammad Buhari is doing for our country.
Are you aware that the Nigerian Air Force is the youngest of the services? Well, that's notwithstanding, it's turning out to be very strategic in modern warfare. That is why we have seen it grown in leaps and bounds under the Buhari administration.
We have 4 helicopter gunships that have been procured and are currently in Nigeria. And we have acquired 10 brand new Super Mishak aircraft. The Super Tucano aircraft, which the federal government has also paid for 12. So if you put together, you have 10, you have 5, that's 15. Then you have another 5, we are expecting that's 20. Another 12 from the US, you're talking of 32. And then in addition to that, of course, we are going to acquire the JF-17 fighter aircraft from Pakistan, which is...
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has appealed to the Inspector General of Police to, as a matter of urgency, put in place mechanism that will contain criminality in any form in Kwara State. The minister made the appeal during the official commissioning of the ultra-modern mobile police barracks solely built by Offa community and donated to the Nigerian police in Offa, Kwara State.
Who witnessed what happened a few days ago in Ilorin would agree with me that cultists, hoodlums, hooligans, and brigands are still very much active in Kwara State. So my appeal to the police, especially the run-up to the general elections, is that you must please redouble your efforts.
Any staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, found wanting in the discharge of his or her duties during the 2019 elections will face the full wrath of the law and serve as deterrent to others. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu gave the advice in Abuja following previous cases where staff of the commission conspired with politicians to dent the image of the commission.
Approach the 2019 general elections. The Commission will pay particular attention to the conduct of our own officials, from the headquarters to the state and local government areas, including ad hoc staff engaged in election duty. We will not tolerate the complicity of staff with political actors or their agents to subvert the electoral process.
NTA has again pledged fairness and equity in the coverage of activities of political parties and the general elections. Director General of NTA Yakubu Ibn Mohammed reaffirmed NTA's commitment when a former DG, Professor Tony Iradia, presented a lecture on election coverage for the management staff of the authority in Abuja.
But NTA is not going to organize events for any political party. We'll go out of our way, like the DDN said, even if we are not invited, we'll invite ourselves.
That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly with Ruth and Kieran after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
60K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Who am I? I'm a caregiver, a slayer, a boss lady, a foodie. I am the chief quality inspector and chief organizer. And when I'm cooking with my Maggie Star, I become a kitchen grand master.
Every day, you choose to make the difference. That's why you choose Maggie Star, made from natural soya beans and the other carefully selected ingredients to help you cook the difference.
I am the chief enjoyment officer, and I'm the magnet that brings my family together. Need I say more? But best of all, I love what I do.
With Maggie, cook the difference.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiyi suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
Me, I am ready for the party. Oh yeah, I want to be smart. I go really early. Oh, I know your story. I go yaba to buy material outside. I go time my daily, yeah. I gonna say I don't care. If you see my daily, it go on everybody. Let me guide you to yellow. Let me guide you to yellow. Let me guide you to yellow. Let me guide you to yellow.
3G is great, 4G is better. You don't know what you're missing till you experience it. Upgrade to a 4G device and SIM, SMS Get to 141 to enjoy double data on Nigeria's widest 4G network.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome back, and now to business news. Central Bank of Nigeria injects $210 million, into foreign forex markets. Let's join Kunle Adeyeye for details.
The wholesale sector of the market got $100 million, while the small and medium enterprises, SMEs, and invisible sector received $55 million each. A statement from the Apex Bank indicates that the forex intervention is in continuation of the bank's resolve to sustain the high level of stability in the forex and ease access to the currency by customers in different sectors. In another development, the Abia State government has commended the federal government for making it one of the states to benefit from its planned investment and rehabilitation of special economic zones in the country. The federal government, which has budgeted 42 billion naira for the project in the 2019 appropriation, is planning to invest in the Eyimba Industrial Park, which will increase the contributions to the GDP to 20% by 2025. The project is also designed to diversify Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings by increasing manufacturing sector exports to at least $30 billion annually by 2025.
We have a gas-powered, independent power facility, which we are doing, collaborating with the agency in charge of rural electrification from the federal government. And today, on a pilot basis, about 1/3 of our area, which is about 30,000 shops, have received uninterrupted power for the past 8 months.
And next is the graphic representation of Thursday's tradings on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
And thank you, Kunle, for that business package. Next on Good Morning Nigeria is the newspaper review.
Thank you for staying with us. And Bayo Atoyebi, our newspaper reviewer, is already here. Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Ruth.
Good to see you.
Morning,
and compliments of the season.
Same to you. Good morning, Nigeria.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You can take off.
Okay, let's start with the sun. And just beside the main flag is saying, Boko Haram attacks naval base in Doro Baga. Situation under control, says Army. You'll find that story on page 4. And the leading story is on Zamfara killings. I support emergency rule. That statement is attributed to Governor Yari as Air Force deploys fighter jets. You'll find the details on page 6 and 41. Now, the picture story there is reflecting commercial activities that has returned to Oshodi Railway Market, Lagos State, just after Christmas holiday. And below the picture story, EFCC secures 312 convictions in 2018. The story you find on page 10. Bade mastermind 4 others in police custody. Parade of suspects postponed. The details is on page 4 and 5. And just one read here. 2019, Mieti Allah endorses Buhari. The story is on page 41. Kieran?
All right, let's turn to the Punch newspaper for this morning. And let's begin with the stories below the nameplate. Of course, let's take the main headline this morning from Punch newspaper. It's the politicians pressuring us to sell unclaimed 914 and 529 PVCs, says INEC chief. Politicians pressuring us to sell unclaimed 914,523 PVCs, says INEC chief. With a rider, commission says strike won't delay 2019 polls. Meet ASU January 4th. Introduces app to check vote buying, among others. Well, we have split pictures in the front page of the Punch newspaper telling different stories there. But there are other stories beside those pictures. We have Mieti Allah endorses president's re-election bid. It's on page 41. And gunmen killed 10, injured 5 in fresh Plateau attack. 42 has the story. Banking sector, others suffer as investment inflows drop by 1 trillion naira. You get the story on page 23. Let's bring in Bayo here for some analysis.
Yes, I'm concerned about the story that Ruth read earlier on. There's been an attack by insurgents again at a military base in Baga. Although the army says there's no cause for alarm, things are in control, but one cannot but observe that there is apparent increase in insurgency activities. And it is not far-fetched. This is Christmas period. They expect people to be relaxed at home, and therefore our security agents must be on the high alert all this time, because the insurgents always try to attack during the soft period when people least expect them. When you are celebrating, that is when they want to spoil your joy. You will recall that even in Yobe, a military base was also attacked very recently. But the encouraging news is that the Chief of Army Staff said the situation is under control. And talking about the same criminality, the governor of Zamfara, Abdulaziz Yari, says he supports the state of emergency in Zamfara if it will save the lives of the people of the state. The implication of a state of emergency is that he probably may no longer serve as governor, as if past precedents as anything to go by, as happened in Plateau some time ago. When there is a state of emergency, the governor is removed and an interim governor is appointed until the situation is brought under control.
But it does appear that many more terrorist groups are beginning to spring up in different parts of the country. We recall that in one of our programs, shortly before Christmas, there was this issue that was raised on the newspaper review too, on how many other names are being ruled out as perhaps new entrants into the terrorist enclave in Nigeria. Do you make sense out of this?
Yes, there's been identifying of other groups, other minor religious groups who are also resorting to violence as a means of achieving their aim. But the concern here, particularly was Zamfara. The Governor Abdulaziz Yari revealed that what is making tackling the banditry, criminality, armed robbery, and kidnapping is that the people involved in the kidnapping are close relatives of the victims. So that is something he revealed yesterday, and this is the reason why the problem is persisting, and we must all come together. And he has said that this is not time for politics. It's not political because people's lives are in danger. But the other side of it is that the deputy governor of Zamfara State, Alhaji Ibrahim Mohammed, says since he declared his intention to run as governor because the term of Governor Yari is expiring, having had 2 terms, his entitlements have been stopped. But he says his own concern too is to ensure that the criminality that has brought their state onto a state of stupor is stopped. He wants to do everything he can to bring this, but apparently his entitlements have been stopped. In fact, of recent, Governor Yari just returned away from somewhere. And while he was away, instead of the deputy governor, it was the speaker of the Zamfara State House of Assembly that was acting governor. So you see, the political atmosphere there also it's not in unison to tackle
these criminals are leveraging on that situation, to carry out mayhem in parts of that state, and this has continued unabated, and something must be done about this because it's getting out of hand.
I'm sure the security operatives are working towards restoring peace in that zone.
Yes, for Zamfara you have Operation Sharandaji. Lafia Dule is there in the northeast, and they are tackling all. You just in the report you read there. There's also some upsurge in Plateau now coming up. You have Operation Heaven Save and Wild Wind within the Middle Belt area, taking care of Benue, Plateau, and Taraba, as well as Nasarawa.
All right, but let's go to other stories.
Okay, let's take New Telegraph now. Just above the masthead, $8.1 billion settlement. MTN set to recover $3 billion market loss as share price jumps. The story you'll find on page 4. And just below the masthead there, PDP President Campaign Team battle over Etisalat Bank's share acquisition. The details is on page 5. Plateau, gunmen kill 5 birthday party guests. Quite sad, and that story is on page 9. Oshun Oyetola presents 152.7 billion naira 2019 budget. The story is on page 33. 5 arrested for ex-CDS Bade's murder. That's what the police is saying, and you find that story on page 8. We saw that in the Sun. Mieti Allah will mobilize 20 million votes for Buhari in 2019. Oshomole, PDP not an option in presidential election. Presidential candidates accuse party chairman of trade-off. The story is on page 2. And one last story here, tenure extension. The Coalition of United Political Parties, CUPP, sues President. Police Service Commission, Inspector General of Police, says Idris can't remain in office after January 15. And the story is on page 4.
All right, Bayo, let's take the stories on the Daily Trust before you round off your analysis. Below the nameplate, that's a Daily Trust newspaper. Yari returns to Zamfara, seeks state of emergency. Staff desert National Assembly despite work resumption. Now the lead headline here on Daily Trust, why we killed ex-defense chief Alex Bade is according to the suspect. The full details can be found on page 5. And if you look at the photograph on the front page of Daily Trust, you find about 9 men being paraded by a police spokesperson, Jumo Mushood. These are men that are alleged to snatch cars, into burglary and other crimes. They were really presented to the public just yesterday. And there we have Boronu APC, that's at the bottom of the Daily Trust. We have Boronu APC warns against unapproved Buhari campaign. That's on page 13. Experts hinge 2019 stock market performance on external and internal factors. Page 17 has greater details of that report. Now, Buhari appoints Ababio, coordinator, presidential support committees. That's on page 10. Let's return to Bayo now.
Yes, this report you read earlier on about politicians wanting to buy PVC, it happened in Oyo, and the resident electoral commissioner, Mutiu Aguke, told a participant at a seminar or online media persons that the INEC staff are resolved and will not undermine the integrity of election. And they, in spite of the overtures, they refuse to succumb to the inducement. Also, the Economic and Financial Crime has put out its report that in this year alone, 2018, it secured 312 convictions among what they describe as 2 politically exposed persons, former governors of Taraba and Plateau. It is an improvement of what happened in 2017 when they had 189 convictions. But there's 2 stories I want to draw attention to. There are stories that are happening in 2 communities. One is at Ofa, where the people of the ancient city handed over a 700 million barracks they built to the Nigerian police. You recall that in 5th of April, robbers attacked that ancient city and killed 33 people in daylight. In fact, the suspects have been arrested and they are awaiting trial. So the community was able to gather money on their own and build a barrack. In fact, the police station that the Kwara State government promised they would build up till now is still under construction. They have not been able to finish it. But Ofa is renowned for its community help. In fact, it is known to, as far back as 1945 to have built a community grammar school, Ofa Grammar School, and very prominent Nigerians have graduated from that school. Presently, there is a university in that town. It's a quiet, serene town. There's a university there, a private university. There's a federal polytechnic there. There is also several secondary schools, and even there is a Navy secondary school in there. So the people there are quite serene, peaceful, and they like to help themselves and do things for their own. But is it
true that Ofa has been experiencing armed robbery for a long time, even before the last one?
Yes. In fact, the people of Ofa are saying that this is enough, is enough. They are using a Yoruba term that says, Otoge, it is enough. Within 10 years, they have had armed robbery 4 times, which is on an average, almost every 2 years, there is armed robbery. And this time, the people are determined to help the police, help them. And the police was represented by the compol of the Commissioner of Police for the Mopol. And so they instituted what they call the Police Mobile Force 58 in Ofa. And it is to take care of Osun, Kwara, Ekiti, and Kogi State. You recall that there's recent armed robbery attacks within that area. And so this will go a long way in helping. The other one is happening in Iri, the ancient home of the Igbo today. The renowned and known as Osu caste system is to be pronounced ending today. This will happen in Iri. And the announcement is to be made at Anocha local government Iri in Anambra State. The Osu caste is the system that undermines and classifies people as second class. So such people cannot marry a freeborn, and they are also not qualified to take titles. It's patently discriminatory. But the good thing is that from today, if you call anybody Osu, then it will always be considered as an abomination, and you pay a fine.
Bio, it's actually, yeah, it depends on communities. I wouldn't know the trajectory of the Nri ceremony you are talking about, and how it has, involved many communities where you find those Osu people. And because in Igbo land, it's a very serious matter. It is in many communities. So what I'm saying is that the Nri, pronouncement that we're expecting should ensure that everybody is carried along.
Yes,
right? Because
what it says is that the traditional representatives will be there at the ancestral home to make sure that it is pronounced and it's something that will permeate the whole of the Igbo land. It is something that we should be ashamed of.
That would be the best thing that can happen, especially in the eastern part of the country, because that is where you find Usu caste. It is predominant in that area. And there was a man that tried such thing in his community. He was a leader. He's dead now, but he tried to bring his community together. But one person was put to him. Right, if you say we should intermarry, allow your first son, who is not yet married, to marry from that Usu caste area. And it never happened. And they reversed the original situation. So the idea is that it's a welcome development, but let people be carried along and let put it into practice.
Yes, all traditions always die hard. But we must have the courage to do away with some of those our renegade traditions. Yes.
Thank you. And let's go to the editorial now. We'll take him from Punch newspaper. It's on creating jobs needs a strategy. This sounding advisory in nature, but it's raising concern that the National Bureau of Statistics showed unemployment rate rising higher to 23% by the third quarter of this year. Let's bring you in.
Well, yes. The editorial is happening on the increase of the unemployment rate, and with the figures published by the National Bureau of Statistics at 23% as very alarming. And they are talking about the fact that there's a possibility that it is up to about 43%. The concern is this. When you are looking at the unemployed, are you talking about the white-collar and the blue-collar jobs? What about those in the informal sector? For instance, the present administration has been saying that they've been able to create about 12 million jobs from the impetuses in agriculture. And it has achieved some tremendous successes. One of the success states that have been mentioned is Kebbi State. And you remember this lake rice thing between Kebbi and Lagos. So also is Nasarawa and several other states that have embraced this. Now, when you are considering unemployment, do you consider all those farmers, people who have gone back to the farm and have reduced our importation of rice up to about importation to only 5%, as not employed? But what the editorial is recommending, I find very difficult to swallow. They say that we should stop the idea of reviving Ajaokuta and sell it off and bring foreign direct investment as an impetus to improve the economy. Nobody will improve your economy for you, but the initiatives must come within.
Within.
Yes.
And you cannot sell something like Ajokuta. Something has to be done about it to revive the place by our people. We have the competencies. It's just a question of the will to get that done, from all indications.
And, Nigerians have shown that drive, that their entrepreneurial spirit is intact. Right. Thank you, Bayo. We don't have time. Thank you so much. I know you want to go on this issue. It concerns everybody, especially the youth in Nigeria.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on our newspaper review. Let's take this break. We'll be back.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There is no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
It's okay, I'm okay.
What happened?
It's just a little scratch, Mom. Hi.
How can I play with bigger boys if I'm afraid of little scratches, right?
What comforts a mother most is to see her child growing up.
I'll go.
Of course. But I know that as he learns to be brave, he'll face even more germs and the risk of infection.
That's why you need Dettol protection, because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
In line with the vision of promoting probity, accountability and transparency in the management of public funds, the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation has unveiled Compendium on Fiscal Rectitude in Government Revenue and Expenditure.
The Treasury Journal that we've recently launched dwells largely on the operations of the Treasury, and in particular, the reform initiatives that we drive as the Treasury, namely the Treasury Single Account, the IFSAS implementation, the IPPS, and a host of others.
Very incisive and educating. Grab a copy of the Treasury Journal from your vendor and get abreast with financial transactions such as monthly allocations within the federal, state, and local governments, Buhari's transformation policy on the Treasury, inroads to IGR, and many more mixed grilling stories. Remember, the Treasury Journal is a dependable ally for researchers, financial institutions, the academia, and policymakers. Treasury Journal, a fiscal rectitude in managing public funds.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
The Candidates, a presidential town hall co-production between Daria Media and NTA, supported by the MacArthur Foundation. 4 presidential town halls, 4 political parties and their presidential and vice presidential candidates. 4 Wednesdays in January 2019, 9th, 16th, 23rd and 30th January, from 7 to 9 p.m. Town hall venue, Sheraton Hotel, Abuja. Moderator, Kadria Ahmed. The candidates will be broadcast live on NTA and other partner TV and radio stations, as well as streamed online on NTA and DTV.media. If you are over 18 and want to be part of the audience, apply online at daria.media or use the hashtag NGTheCandidates, or participate online using the hashtag NGTheCandidates.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiye suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
All right, so on to Good Morning Nigeria and the network service of the NTA. Now, let's begin today's edition of the program on a democratic trajectory. In spite of internal and external murky waters, democracy has survived in Nigeria with its torch burning brighter. Now, the country has had 5 major elections, with the 5th bringing in a government from the opposition party. Good Morning Nigeria discussed 19 years of democratic rule in Nigeria. Joy and Kinsley anchored the program on that day. Now we'll bring you some of the excerpts from that presentation.
So looking at 19 years of
democratic governance in Nigeria. How well have we fared in that direction?
Well, I think we have done fairly well given our history, and even countries that have been under democratic governments for over 200 years are still fine-tuning, trying to get the best out of the system. So having started in earnest from 1999 to date, I think we have moved significantly well. The legislature was the one that was weakest in 1999, and thank God I was a member of the National Assembly, then in the House of Representatives. We hardly had any offices for members of the House at that time, and I believe that senators too at that time, and talk less of working tools. But we have come a long way. What we are trying to do today, having come this far, is to ensure that the state legislatures are also at a level that is maybe important, again, just like the National Assembly has achieved. And that we are trying to do through the financial autonomy, to give the state assemblies that kind of platform that will give them some level of independence.
What should be the relationship between these two arms of government and the subnationals so that we can bring about the change that we want for the electorate?
Thank you. Let me say that one of the problems we've had, I will just a little back. I started before when I said that Nigerians should commend and congratulate themselves for having come this far. That was holistic. I want us to recognize a fact. When there is an administration, it is one government. I think part of the problems we've had when you talk about the legislature and the executive is this mentality of we and them. We must realize, just like the Senate leader said, Senator Lowen, that what the legislature is doing, what the executive is doing, and what all others, the judiciary, are doing is towards a common goal. And that goal is for the betterment of the citizens.
People thought to refer to our democracy as being nascent. Now that we are virtually exiting the teenage years of our democracy, what's your evaluation of the journey so far?
Well, I think we've made a lot of progress. But, you know, as the Senate leader mentioned, used the word that is an optimist. And that is what defines or differentiates between somebody who sees a cup that is half full and another seeing the same glass of water as half empty. I personally prefer to see the glass as half full rather than half empty, even though you are referring to the same level. So I think on that premise, I would not hesitate at all to say that we have made progress. Nobody is saying that we are 100% there, or that we have reached a state of perfection. No country in the world is perfect. Every country in the world is grappling with one challenge or the other. We have our own challenges in Nigeria.
Dr. Adasereke, very quickly, 19 years later, is Nigeria's democracy growing or stunted?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag, but first let me commend the Senate leader for commending Nigerians for having tolerated people within his own class. Because over the years, the political elites, to be sincere, have not really been fair to the Nigerian people, to the Nigerian state, and to democracy in the country. You will recall that over time in this program, we have always mentioned that we are practicing democracy without democratic culture and principles. Yes, we have come a long way. Yes, so much has been achieved over the years as far as democracy is concerned. But then there are still challenges that we need to overcome before Nigeria can actually be referred to as a democratic society or a democratic state. Now, in terms of institutions, as the panelists have equally mentioned, we still have a very long way to go in building democratic institutions. Institutions like the political parties, institutions like the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, particularly in terms of the relationship between the legislature and the executive. As Dr. Akomas rightly pointed out, both the legislature and the executive believe that they are running separate governments. You will recall that in the past in this program also, we mentioned that politicians in Nigeria have a poor understanding of what the principle of separation of power is. Separation of power simply is more like division of labor, to ensure that no one arm of government is overburdened with responsibilities and tasks. But then, of course, ultimately, you are talking about one government serving one society, serving one set of people. And therefore, the acrimony over the years since 1999 between the executive and the legislature underscores the fact that we are yet to understand this principle of separation of powers. We are yet to understand, the basic elements of democratic institution building.
Well, indeed, a milestone, Kieran, if you ask me. And yes, we're in that continuous journey of benefits and dividends of our democracy, especially as we approach 2019 elections. We must work together to ensure free, fair, and credible elections.
Yes, I believe in the guest that said it's a mixed bag, because we still have political machinations and innuendo. We still have cross-carpeting, what we call people who are not idealistic or, in terms of what they believe in, who are defecting from one party to the other. We still have a vote buying or what have you. All those discrepancies are all part of the problem we are having along the line. Go ahead.
And women must show interest in politics. But we know politics in Nigeria involves huge financial spendings, and the resort to cash inducement of the electorate poses a significant challenge in our democracy. Now, Good Morning Nigeria devoted 2 editions of the program on the 14th and the 15th of February 2018 to deliberate on money and politics. Here are the excerpts with Kinsley and Claire.
Is the influence of money in Nigerian elective politics? Is it an aid or a spoiler? First, Adamu Modibo.
Money is everything in the Nigerian politics. You see, in the Nigerian electoral process can be subdivided into 3 segments. The up to primary process, then the secondary process, which is the general election, and then post-election process, which is the election tribunals up to the Supreme Court. And at every segment of this process, money is important, either lawfully, in terms of paying for your campaign materials, your adverts, running your campaign office and so on, or illegally, bribing voters, bribing INEC, or bribing community leaders to be able to get acceptance and so on. So money is very critical in the election process in Nigeria at every level.
All right, thank you very much. Hajia Mero Habib, what's your take on this? How crucial is money?
Money, it's actually very important in all aspects of life, but more so in politics. I will put it in a layman's language that money is actually the food of politics. Because if you don't have money, you are a non-starter, no matter what people say. It's not even in terms of what we call institutionalized, corruption in politics, whereby even people in office who want to seek election always use the positions they have to get to where they want to be. But you need to put up your structures. You need money to do that. You need to move people around. You need to actually feed the system as well. So money is actually very, very crucial in politics. And you actually need more money than people think. More money than people think, really.
All right.
They are hidden money.
All right.
Yes.
I like the emphasis. You need more money than people think. And that's why, Professor Remi Shonaya, you have the most recent experience as far as, you know, politics and elections are concerned here in Nigeria. I've heard people talk about the fact that you really don't need money, you know, to go into politics or to be a politician in this country. But really, how important is money to politics in Nigeria?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much. I would like to differ a little bit from what has been said. Yes, indeed, all that has been said is the situation. But what I would like to, the point I'd like to make is that unfortunately, money is not being used to achieve the ends that we should be looking for in politics. That is the unfortunate situation that we're in. All the things that we need money for making the posters, for traveling around, should really be geared towards helping the people to know the candidates.
You need money to push your ideas. You need money to push your ideas. You need money to circulate your ideas. But the money is not coming from everybody. It's coming from few people. And the question would then be, if the money is coming from just a few set of actors, are you going to still sustain the principle of a democratic institution called a political party that can serve public interest? I think that's the contradiction that is raised when we talk about money in politics in Nigeria. That's the Nigerian peculiarity. We began the discussion on money and politics in Nigeria. We had guests who made their contributions today. Of course, we are continuing with that conversation.
Money and politics in Nigeria. What's your take on that?
Well, it's a very wide topic, money and politics. One would say all over the world, money is very important in politics. Everywhere in the world. You need a lot of money for voter education, you need a lot of money for publicity, you need a lot of money for logistics.
But in most cases, a lot of people worship money, let me put it that way, because they believe that money could do everything. Yes, a lot of people say money does everything, but in politics, it cannot never be everything. You need money, yes, for basic things you have to carry out, you have to do politically. But if you are a popular person, there are areas where money will not work. And if you have to say money has to work, then you are sure of going for not the best. You will just be going for what money will get for you and not the best. So money is necessary, yes, because you have to campaign. People have to move out for campaign with you. You have to take care of them. You have to pay necessary fees to your political party, even to the INEC, where you have specific amounts you need to pay to be able to contest.
All over the world, money is the engine oil needed to oil the political wheel. Money is used both in the advanced world and also in Africa or the developing democracies. But however, the application is what is very, very important. The method, the use, and the ways in which we apply the use of money.
Influence of money in politics, or if you like, monetization of politics. What was your experience like? Were you outmuscled by bigger money?
Dislocation of priorities, or dislocation of values. Our value has been disjointed, has been displaced, and things have just gone out of alignment, so to speak. So we always give example of abroad, advanced countries and all that. What is it that is missing in our system? Nobody has asked that. What is missing is because, and why money plays the role it does, there is no national interest. Just ask me, what is Nigerian national interest? Once you don't have that, it is free for all.
Believe that polling units are just there for people to go and cast their votes. But when you go into practical politics, you are told that polling unit A belongs to so and so person, and so you have to go and meet such a person, begin to negotiate and all of that. And then you have to deal with security agencies. You have to deal with the voters themselves, because as I have said earlier, voters believe that it is only during elections that they will have access to you. It is only during elections that they can get their own share of the national cake, which you are going to get. And then, of course, they rightly believe so because they believe that they are doing you a favor.
It is public knowledge that the conduct of elections by the state independent electoral commissions has over time generated controversies bordering on credibility. It was for this and other reasons that Good Morning Nigeria also in February examined the capacity of the state electoral commissions to conduct free, fair and credible local government elections. Kingsley and Rhoda presented that edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
Tell us something about the performance of the state independent electoral commissions with regard to the conduct of local council polls.
Thank you very much. I think my experiences and the reality on ground, it's not different from what the generality of Nigerians are decrying. In fact, the state independent electoral commissions are in fact not independent. And it is also one bad example of why people say state policing is discouraged at this time because of the hold state governors have on independent electoral commissions in the state. And I give you an example. You have no state election that you have mixed political parties getting victory at the polls. In every one of these state elections, you see them basically just return the government in power and they announce the result. In some instances where they are threatened, they simply just disqualify every other political party. And for crying out loud, I do not think the state independent electoral commissions are ready to conduct elections in Nigeria. And here is why. They don't even have a voter roll. They go and take a voter roll from the Independent Electoral Commission, the federal, to come and conduct state, local government elections. And my question is, if they are not even ready to conduct election, why not allow INEC to conduct the elections? In fact, you are decrying the cost of elections in Nigeria, and you go and create some more bureaucracy, you create some more executive positions, and people are giving these very bogus appointments as SECs. And they do nothing. They really do nothing. Democracy is dead at the local government.
I think in both character and content, the state independent electoral commissions remain the most brazen and outrageous example of impunity and lack of electoral values in our democratic setup. Here we have a country that is under a democratic setup guided by reason. But here we have the state electoral commission, which conducts elections where democracy is moving from the sublime to the ridiculous, where we see impunity, where we also see things. Look, I lack words even to describe what the state electoral commissions are, because as far as I'm concerned, it is just a mockery of what democracy entails, because
are comfortable with that situation. And you have situations where state governors will then appoint caretaker committees or sole administrators, which are unconstitutional. And people there are comfortable with working with those people. And you see a situation where everybody, most people at the states, they find it difficult to speak up against what they find wrong in the state, but they will rather talk about the federal, what's happening at the federal level, because it seems that the power wielded by the state government, by the state governors, is such that they cannot stand up against. And then again, we have situations where the state houses of assembly are too often working in cahoots with the state governors. And so where you...
Okay, I have heard everything about what panel members are talking about. Before I go on to your question, one of the panel members is talking about one of the reasons why the state electoral commission should be described is because of cost. I think that is not a good reason, because if INEC is to conduct election on the local government, the 774 local governments, they are not going to do that free. And you should also try and check how many billions are allocated to INEC to conduct elections. So cost will remain. Coming back to what you asked is the issue of child voting. You know, we said it right from the beginning that where does the issue of child voting comes in? We called the political parties to come to our office during the distribution of materials in the first instance. We say follow the election materials to the various local governments, and then at the center of the local governments, if the materials are distributed to the various polling units, send your agents to follow it so that there will be no diversion of election materials. And then by the time you cast your votes, also hang around to remain on till the votings are completed and votes are counted and you hear your result, so that there will be no any malpractices. We told them about that. So if the stakeholders, the political parties had played their role, where does a child voting comes in? And like I told you, we have inspected those videos. If you look at them critically, look at the videos critically. In the first place, it can be a setup. If you look at them, I have them all. There are some that you only see the children holding their votes and on the boxes, which means you have not seen. We have not seen any other people around. Only the children. So, is there any polling unit that is only dedicated to children? That is our question. And then, secondly, there was another picture posted about this issue of child child voting. We saw the child being accredited with card reader, and we have not used card reader. That picture of 2015 is still brought in to discredit our election.
I think Prof is getting something fundamentally wrong. When people want to do mischief at the polls, they don't do it in full glare of onlookers.
Talk of the State Electoral Commission without information. There is need for urgent reform of the State Electoral Commission if you want democracy to prevail. Otherwise, the State Electoral Commissions have become errand boys, perfected by the governors, so as to capture the whole state and also capture the economy of the state.
Well, protecting the integrity of any elections, Kirian, is key, and it must be streamlined, the electoral process I'm talking about, in all ramifications, be it at state or local level.
Yeah, and what the guest posited, is germane, to that particular, topic on that day, because we have 3 tiers of government. And if one usurps the responsibility of another, then is not democratic. For state governments to ensure that all the local governments in their domain are under them, it is totally wrong. And that's why the problem persists. So let's go ahead.
Well, funding is also a challenge, but let's move on. Let's move away briefly from the political arena. How much sleep do we need? Was the question posed by Good Morning Nigeria to medical experts on 16th of March this year. Now, Kinsley and Blessing anchored that edition. Let's see it.
Let's begin the conversation just straight away by, again, examining the concept of sleep. Why sleep? Dr. Ihuama Okereke.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Sleep is an important phase in the life of every human. It's a time when the body gets to restore the energy levels that have been depleted during the day. It's also important during that period we have hormones being secreted that are important for growth, like the growth hormone is secreted during sleep. Also during that time, the immune system is also reactivated to help the individual carry out the activities needed the next day. So, and different individuals, depending on the age, requires different amounts of sleep. So for a young person, might need 14 to 16 hours, because during childhood, the growth phase is important. The person is still growing. But as an adult, you might need 5 to 7 hours of sleep for effective functioning during the next day, for coordination, for memory and learning. It's an important phase, very important in the life of every individual.
Sleep is very essential for survival, as important as balanced diet and exercise. It's, we have an internal biological clock, which is in sync with our environment, and it's called the circadian rhythm. And normally, during the day, we're expected to be alert. And as the day winds down, we're expected to begin to shut down and prepare for sleep. But these days, we're overwhelmed with work expectations, with meeting targets, studies. So most people are deprived of sleep. And in the long run, it affects us significantly. I'll tell you briefly about a study that was carried out amongst rats, with rats. They found that ordinarily, their life expectation is 2 to 3 years. Okay. But these rats were deprived of sleep for about a week, and they died in 5 weeks. So that's how important sleep is for our general human functioning.
Is a controller of how the body syncs with the external environment. So if there is a shift in that internal clock as a result of internal changes in the body, maybe stress or changes in the body hormones or neurotransmitters or other chemicals, or changes in the environment as to maybe somebody walking late into the night, or a derangement in the person's routine, that can shift that internal clock balance that also controls wakefulness and sleep. Depending on the shift direction, it also affects sleep and creates its own consequences.
I would want to approach this from a very practical perspective. For those of us who use laptops or computers, you realize that sometimes when you have multiple windows open, you are working on many things, you have the Word document open, you have opened several windows, and you don't shut down the system. What then happens is that sometimes your laptop will just stop functioning. It will just stop, it will hang, or it will freeze, and you will have to sometimes shut it down and then restart it before it functions again. So that scenario is exactly what happens with our body. When we sleep, that is a period when our body replenishes itself, repairs itself, memory is consolidated, and then your emotions, it's like a timeout from all of the stressors of day-to-day life that you are exposed to. So if you do not, or you deprive yourself, or you are unable to achieve this sleep, to allow your body undergo these natural restorative processes, which is very, very important for physical reasons, for emotional reasons, psychological reasons, as has been mentioned earlier, because some hormones, some activities occur during sleep. Some of them includes memory, that the things you want your brain to remember, it is consolidated when you are sleeping. The heart, the hormones that are secreted that affect metabolism, for example, the glucose, the sugar in your body. So all of these things, if they do not occur the way they should, what studies have shown is that when you are deprived of sleep for, say, 36 to 48 hours, so 1.5 to 2 days, you then become disoriented, your judgment becomes impaired, your ability to make decisions is affected, your ability to concentrate on tasks, so your productivity reduces, and then you may become irritable and have emotional, irritability. And so it's counterproductive, it's counterintuitive, because students, for example, think that it's better to read all through the night so that you can achieve make-up time. But the end product is that your memory reduces when you are deprived of sleep. Your attention reduces, your productivity in tasks reduces. So sleep is as essential to life as oxygen that we breathe every day and the food that we eat every day.
Who is a competent expert to handle sleep disorders?
Because there is a variety of related causes to sleep problems, there will sometimes have to be a consensus or an aggregate of experts who will manage such patients. Some sleep disorders are related to mental health disorders. Some sleep disorders are related to chronic physical disorders. Some are primary sleep disorders. So for those who have a relationship with mental health and chronic physical disorders, there's bound to be a liaising consultation between mental health experts and medical physicians to deal with such sleep problems. Then the other issues about primary sleep disorders, I think is mainly in the purview of neurologists and neuropsychiatrists and psychiatrists.
Well, a takeaway from that package for me is the fact that, you know, sleep helps you to consolidate your memories. But, some people also interpret the memories to become dreams. And I begin to look for someone to interpret the dreams. What have you. So how much of sleep do you get?
I don't compromise my sleep. Only if it is necessary that I stay awake in the night. But I must catch up. I don't compromise it.
Exactly. It is good for all of us. Now, Good Morning Nigeria edition of the 8th of March focused on chronic kidney disease and women's health, considering the fact that chronic kidney disease is the leading cause of death in women globally. Here are excerpts of that edition presented by Kinsley Andruda.
Are the kidneys in women different from the kidneys in men? Or what makes a woman's kidneys any more special or unique?
In the kidneys of a male and the kidneys of a female. That is, it's just that because of the physiological peculiarity of women, if you have a kidney disease, it's more likely that things will get worse, or it may affect women's health generally.
For women, we are bearers of children. So if you have kidney disease, it's going to impact on you as the woman, as well as your children, whether they are males or females. Because when you have kidney disease, infants, the baby you carry in your tummy is going to be small size. And small size is associated with a lot of risk factors. It's associated with diabetes. It's associated with hypertension, is associated with metabolic disease, is associated with kidney disease. Like my colleague has said, in women physiologically, our kidneys may be a little smaller, but they are about the same. But the fact that we bear children and we are exposed to risks of pregnancies, including high blood pressure during pregnancy, you would notice some women who have what we call preeclampsia, their kidneys suffer. And some of them, even after they have had their babies, later in life, they might actually develop chronic kidney disease from the problems they had during pregnancy. Some women during septic abortion will also have acute kidney injury, and we have known that acute kidney injury is a risk factor for chronic kidney disease. So it goes on and on and on, reasons why chronic kidney disease may be more in women. Outside the medical aspect, we also have the social and cultural aspect. Women, by gender roles, don't have access to health like the men. A few years back, I ran this study where pattern of kidney disease in University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. What I found was startling. I found that men would present, and more men presented, more men had renal replacement therapy, which is expensive, and more men had transplant. In fact, as at the time I did that study, not a single woman had transplant. So women are disenfranchised physiologically, socially, culturally, because they need access to health. And this access to health is determined by their male partners in most cases.
The amount of money that is required to put someone on dialysis and keep such person alive for life, it's a lot of money. You will need, within 1 week, almost 100,000 naira to get dialysis. And an average Nigerian certainly cannot afford that kind of amount of money. Again, if you talk about transplantation, you need an initial amount that is, again, very, very challenging for an average Nigerian to get. Even after the transplant has been very successful, you also need between 200 and 250,000 naira to keep the kidney alive. So we are talking about a disease that can make an individual very, very poor, even when he's already fantastically rich before. That is one of the reasons why we talk about kidney disease, its prevention, what we can do, and how we can reduce the incidence, the prevalence, so that people who cannot afford this treatment don't get them. Right now, as we speak, most people who develop kidney disease are people we can describe as breadwinners of their family, especially when we look at women who will take care of the children, who will ensure that the family is well taken care of. And you can imagine when such a person falls sick and the family cannot afford to get that person well. The implication of that is that the economic ability of that family to continue to maintain the family will be reduced, if not lost. And it may affect how they can be able to pay even the children's school fees, or even to pay the rent on their houses. So it's an economic burden that is very heavy on the family and also on the nation.
If somebody who already have a kidney disease and probably has a baby and is breastfeeding,
that's right.
Probably if you are lucky to have been pregnant and have delivered, then that is good. But you see, most of these women are also on medication, and there are certain medications that are secreted in breast milk, which the baby can take. There are some medications, especially for lowering blood pressure, that can also reduce the breast milk production and volume. So usually in the hospital, we try to avoid that. And we also look at certain medications we know that can be secreted in breast milk, which the baby takes, and may have side effects in the baby. You should realize that the child doesn't have the kidney disease, but it's the mother that has kidney disease. But you have to treat the mother, so you have to be very sure that any medication you are going to give is a medication that will be safe for the baby.
As I would advise, we don't usually want to wait for symptoms or signs, because if you're waiting for symptoms or signs, you just have about 25 to 10% function left.
Well, the cliche, health is wealth, is just apt. We should put our health in check. Now, moving on, following cases both reported and those discussed in hush-hush tones, the unwelcoming angles to sexual harassment in schools was also of interest to Good Morning Nigeria crew. Now, this edition was anchored by Joy and Kinsley sometime in April. Let's have a look.
What are the telltale signs that Mr. A or Mr. B might be a potential harasser? You are in class, for instance. Is it when he comes and he says, look, if you have not submitted your assignment, come and see me at 9 p.m.? Or what are those telltale signs so that a potential victim can say, hey, look, when I see this kind of behavior, I should be on guard?
That is like a warning signal.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, one of the telltale signs is that the potential harasser and it begins to get develop unusual interest in the potential victims. They begin to take necessary, like they make some sexual advances towards them. Even they make some verbal comments that have sexual connotation. So when they begin, they may begin to come close to the victims that they are beginning to have interest in. So there is undue attention that is given to their victims, which may manifest in this manner.
Reports in the past of very ugly incidents. There were students taking the laws into their own hands. Some lecturers were reported in the past, as I said, to have sexually harassed the girlfriends of some of those hotheads on campuses. In other words, the cultists, who then themselves rallied and then dealt with the lecturer. Do you still have such incidents?
Yes, of course. Of course. When I was the student union president of
Akanibian Federal Polytechnic Unwana. There was this notorious, will I say notorious lecturer who everybody knows that he doesn't pass, he has a wife, but he doesn't pass a night without sleeping with a female student. And what did we do? And my own director of transport was also in power tussle with the girlfriend, that the lecturer was also interested in the girlfriend of the director of transportation. But when he brought the complaint to me, as an advocate to the female student, I asked the young man, are you interested in marrying this girl? He said, no, we are just friends. But this lecturer is so interested in the girl too. Where do you want me to come in? I said, I will come in by making sure that it is even morally wrong for a lecturer to be making advance on a female student. And we'll go by it this way. I will invite the girl and I'll ask the girl, what is your interest? Are you interested in the relationship with your lecturer? Or are you interested in the relationship you have with the so-called boyfriend of yours? He said the lecturer is the one coming after him, but he's so interested in his in her boyfriend because the man is already married and he doesn't want anything to interfere in the man's marriage. We went further on to say, to create a platform to make the lecturer also understand that we are aware of what you are doing. And if you overstep your boundaries, we will take it extra mile with you. He became cautioned.
Because it is nice to hear that people are coming out to speak out about it now. Are you thinking of ways of working together with everyone involved so we can find a lasting solution to this issue?
Thank you. With the way these things are coming up now, like I said earlier, the ministry has zero tolerance. We begin to think of how to work together with the institutions. Like I said, the reports are there. We begin to now think of how to work together with them to stem these ugly incidents that is almost becoming common in our institutions. But before then, I want to say that most of our tertiary institutions enjoy some degree of autonomy. The universities, for instance, the governance structure is that it starts from there is a governing council headed by a pro-chancellor or a chairman. Then in that governance structure, you have the management, you have the Senate. So some of these decisions are always taken or go to these bodies.
Ms. Chidao, I remember your days when you were the principal in schools, and I know the kind of attention you paid to your students at the time. Let's have your view on this issue of molestation in our schools today.
When we discovered that we were having cases of pregnancy, we now called ourselves and said, okay, I think the best thing to do is to create more time. So we created, we met the school. We turned the school into a semi-boarding school, which wasn't. This helped us so much because we discovered that at 2 o'clock when children leave school back to their homes, they go selling. Then I was in Suleja. They go selling, and then all we got in return was all this harassment here and there, pregnancy cases. And when we discover the cases, maybe some will say, they may not even know the person because when there are more than 1 or 2. And some will say it is this person. In those days, what we used to do, we call parents and the person in concern, and then we discuss. This helped us in a way because when we introduced the program till 6 p.m., when we closed by 2, we now gave the students some rest between 2 and 4, where we start again with some activities like games or prep or lectures, inviting people and individuals to give career talks or sensitize the children on how to live and behave and to avoid all that they were going into. And we had some reduction of such cases. Some that were ready to marry the children will marry them today because there was an edict that anybody who impregnate a girl, a schoolgirl, will either be sent to prison or if the child is in school, will be withdrawn. And or they marry the man marries the girl. So it was easy for them to say, I will marry her. And after marriage, 3 months or 6, they would just, file for divorce. And it became a problem for us. But at a stage, we were able to curtail these pregnancy cases in our schools. And the culprits were punished in those days.
Yeah, sexual harassment, of course, is indeed an act that is becoming pervasive in many public schools, not just the universities, but even in secondary schools. And some of these lecturers do this with impunity, and some get away with it. The very few that are reported, of course, Nigerians celebrated that of the OAU,
Yes.
which, of course, has been taken further, and the man gets in jail sentences. It's advisable, to do that to assist our girls grow up in schools without having to be harassed by men.
And some people put the blame on the victim, especially when there is no evidence.
Exactly.
It's quite sad.
Okay, away from that now, given the growing tendency for drug abuse among young persons, amidst other unpleasant conditions this leave the users with, the family support system will certainly bring much help to society. This angle was the Encouragement Good Morning Nigeria edition of 9th May 2018 brought to the fore as it deliberated on drug abuse, addiction and rehabilitation. That edition was anchored by the duo of Kingsley and Joy.
Speak a bit on that. How is it, what does that do to students on campus, this issue of peer pressure, wanting to belong and feel among?
I would use myself as an example. Like, I wanted to be the coolest kid in school. And peer groups and all that, you mix with a lot of wrong set of people. And I'm supposed to have graduated in 2014. Here I am in the same process in another institution. I'm in 200 level now. I see a lot of just yesterday I wanted to withdraw transport to come here, and I just ran into one of my friends. He's a banker at FCMB, and I'm in 200 level. But I'm not saying I regret, because it's my past that's it's how do I put it, like it's killing. Out of every 10 youths you meet in the streets or in the universities now, out of every 10, 8 are users. And all these people, they didn't start at home. They met with the wrong set of people in school, and it's bringing our youths down. Yet they say,
you're observing him.
Well, initially, I saw the boys in the society who were in Kano, who I didn't consider them responsible, and I was associating with them, and they were sending him. So I detached him from them, and nobody should send him on any errand at all, because for us, those boys are not good boys. So, and I didn't want my child to be associated with them. But at that time, I was too young for me to begin to suspect. Because when we were growing up, an elder would call some of those who smoke the cigarette. They asked to go and buy for them, want to take cola. No, they sent to go and buy for them. We knew that was...
when you are coming back, you should light it. You should light the cigarette.
No, they never told us to light them. So I told them that because the elders at that time, they are responsible. They don't do anything. They just sit down and smoke their cigarette, and that's all we know about them. So when they're sending, and these ones are not looking clean, they are looking irresponsible, looking haggard. I said that these ones, they have gone beyond the normal limit. So I detached him from them, and that was all. And until much later, then I begin to see that he's withdrawn. He does, when you are staying in the sitting room, he's not there. He's always alone. He wants to do this, and then he will go out. He does not come back on time, and I begin to notice all those things.
Now, what would be your advice in terms of having to block the supply route of some of these drugs? And I'm asking this question. Tell us, if you moved into a new city, or if you moved into a new environment, how will you know who the supplier is? How will you know where you can get, the particular doses? And therefore, what can be done, to get hold of those suppliers and put them out of business?
Okay. For me, while I was using, for example, when I went to Mina for the Quranic education, I needed to smoke that morning. I got out and I was by the roadside and I was observing the Okada people. So I got to see someone whose lips was black and his eyes were showing that he also is a user. And I stopped in and I told him that, okay, if you could take me to where I could get cannabis, I'm going to give you 1,000. And the distance was just a 50 naira distance. And because I was willing to pay him 1,000, he took me to 5 other places. If you don't get here, you get here. If you don't get here, you get there. So first things first, in getting youths not to do drugs, the number one key, I feel the number one key to life is understanding. Once they have that understanding that you can do music without getting high, if you're a writer, you can source for inspiration without getting high, then the world will be a better place.
What should we expect of local governments and state governments as additional support to what the NDLA is doing?
That's a very good question. And let me answer it briefly 2 ways. The first thing I need to say is the regulation, the law set up the NDLA is a federal law. But indeed, we all know that the citizens are local citizens. They belong to local government, they belong to states. It is for that reason that a few states are examples of the interest that they have of their citizens. I'd like to mention here Anambra, Oyo, Kano. And Kano as a whole, it is the first unit that might overcome the drug menace because everybody's in sync. You have the government, you have the businessmen, you have the elites, you have the academicians, you have the civil society groups, you have the youth organizations, all working together. They have realized how bad it is. If ever we are going to have a success story, it will come from Kano. As bad as it is with Kano, they seem to have realized that they must all work together. In Oyo State, what he has done, wherever we had discovered cannabis farms in plantations that belong to government, and we have cleared it, the government has stepped in to give it to the communities around there and giving us some money for alternative development.
All right, thank you very much, Colonel Abdallah. Let's move quickly to the United Kingdom to get the final comment of Dr. Udenzi.
Thank you very much. Drug abuse is real. Addiction is here to stay. We can't get rid of it. We can only manage it. We need the concerted effort of government and non-governmental organizations to work on this project. But more importantly, I would really like to see Mr. President himself address this issue. In an article I wrote last week, I said, this issue is killing Nigerians. It's like a cancer. Mr. President, sir, should please address the nation on the subject matter only.
The dangers are no doubt glaring, and it still falls back to parenting. But we have some tweets coming now. Let's take them before we continue. Zach Wadi, money is very necessary in electionary processes. Electoral law promotes it. That's why there is provision for monstrous sums for candidates to use in facilitating campaigns.
All right, now from Suleiman Sanusi, he said the incidents of vote buying and voters' card buying have gone viral after they inflicted us with hunger, abject poverty, and high rate of unemployment. They now turn to make the people their slave, despite that everyone turned a blind eye on this. So sad. That's according to Suleiman Sanusi.
And Dele Jack Solomon, let's Let me use this vista to commend Nigerians for their patience, resilience, support, and great hope in our country. I salute their courage and determination to survive in the midst of severe challenges. Let us roll over this spirit into 2019 with the hope that Nigeria will be better and greater. God bless Nigeria. God bless Nigerians. Nigeria will be great again.
That's a good one from Jack Solomon. He's been a very interesting, viewer on this platform because he keeps, reaching us on daily basis for a year now. All right, now Hassan Sadiq says, it is one of my favorite programs in 2018. Please keep up with the good works. God bless. That's saying that Good Morning Nigeria is his favorite program. That's from Hassan Sadiq. Thank you, Hassan. And
Chinedu Nicholas, NTA Good Morning Nigeria has been so educating. Topics discussed were wonderful. I suggest the management should decentralize the language by allowing all local stations to reproduce every sensitive topics in the respective language of their local for efficient assimilation.
Yeah, that's good. And from Mutana Farouk, he says, NTA's Good Morning Nigeria has done marvelously well in terms of political, economic, security and societal reportage in 2018. You guys are journalistic geniuses, especially Kinsley, Kirian, Claire, Blessing, Joy and others, including my friend Ruth here now. And I wish you the best of luck in many years ahead and keep it up. Good job.
All right. And from one of our regulars, Festus Akimboyewa, throughout 2018, NTA Good Morning Nigeria did not disappoint in playing a vital role in discussing topics that are relevant to Nigeria and Nigerians. And judging from the torrent of tweets it receives on every topic, there's no doubt that the program gained many followers in 2018. Well done. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Nana Isbelo says, Good Morning Nigeria. We appreciate your program as 2018 goes. God bless NTA and our nation.
And Victor, good work, but next year stress your program on the youths. Okay, noted. All right, let's move on. Now, for a while, it was a recurring crisis like none other for the country's soccer body. Now, the 24th of August 2018 edition of Good Morning Nigeria looked at the measures taken in calming turns nerves beyond the pitch with Joy and Kinsley as studio umpires. Let's see it.
If you heard what I was saying, in terms of the governance framework, everybody keeps, the point has been articulated that, fine, the rules are there, nobody's abiding by the rules, but there are basic foundations, basic foundations to say, look, this is the statute, these are the entities you are supposed to have, members in general meeting or Congress, as it's called, your executive committee, this is the relationship between one and the other, and if there is a breach, where do you go to ensure that everyone gets back to the starting blocks?
Well, that's a tough question to answer because the entire structure, the foundation of it, how the people, the stakeholders, the role they play in assembling the Nigeria Football Federation board, as it were, the constitution of the committees, everywhere you find manipulation and, personal interests and, patronizing friends and cronies and all that kind of thing. The entire system is just not functioning well because we are not established properly. There's nothing correct about it. You find that those who are genuine football people, a lot of them are not within the system. You find people who are pretenders who are running the system. So you cannot have, proper structures and policies in place to drive anything. And that cuts across the entire sports industry. In all the federations, really, it is the same. We must go back to the basics again. We must go back, trace our history back to where we started, where we got it right. We were getting it right before, until we started to dismantle everything that we have done. And this is a reflection, really, of the country, unfortunately, is a reflection of the country.
It will also be good to also look at the side effect of all this crisis, especially on the leagues, the players, who get to bear the brunt?
A lot of people. A lot of people. Look, I don't want to be a staff of the Nigerian Football Federation or Association. I feel for those guys. You show up at work in the morning and there are policemen with weapons drawn, not to let you do your job that you are being paid for. Our government, the embarrassment and continuous embarrassment that this is bringing to our country. Our people, the fans, what legacy are we leaving for young children? I grew up going to the stadium with my father and his friends. I loved the game from there because my dad took me to the stadium. Which parent will want to take his child or son or daughter to a stadium these days to go watch a football match? What about the people that we are creating employment for, who are footballers, coaches, trainers, masseuses, drivers, supporting candidates? I mean, these people are the ones that bear this. And the general public. What is this doing to a potential sponsor who is looking to fund a football club? It might be just a football club in my village that you want to fund. But if it's going to be registered with the Edo State FA, you begin to say, why do I want to do this?
Back to the foundation to resolve this problem, what should we do?
We just have to, there are rules and regulations. But the determination to keep to these rules and regulations, I think, is what makes the difference. I was saying earlier on that all these things are provided for in the statutes of FIFA, CAF, and even the NFL itself. But the implementation is the problem. And Chief Odegbami said something about court for sports administration. It's not a court for football administration, sports administration. I believe that sports can be used to solve a lot of problems in this country. But because we are not paying adequate attention to it, we are running into trouble.
Gaya to speak to this with regard to the establishment of a court of arbitration, a domestic court of arbitration for sports in Nigeria. How was that supposed to pan out, and how would that have been a panacea to the recurrent crisis in our soccer administration?
Well, in any system at all, you must have to have a level playing field for things to work. And so the system must allow room for people with misgivings or disagreements to be able to vent out their anger, believing that if they so do, they will have solution to their problems. Unfortunately, we don't have such systems in this country. And that's why at some point in time, it was the general agreement that Nigeria should have its own court for arbitration of sports, so that every matter to do with sporting events or sporting issues are brought before such a court. That will have in a way remove the recourse to regular courts. But again, you cannot just do that by wish or by fiat. Necessarily, there must be some legislation too that will warrant the establishment of same.
Well, it's really interesting getting someone like Shegu Odebwami and Onibinde, both played key role in the development of soccer in Nigeria. And from their postulations, it does seem things have gone out of hands. But it's good to announce, of course, that we all know that the administration in power now, the NFF, has actually brought some changes, Amaju Pinnick has even broken the record of returning as NFF chairman the second time. It never happened in our history.
Well, the future of football lies solely on good management and leadership, and we must work together to put that right.
All right, and now let's get a sneak peek on the political scene once more. The year 2018 witnessed a gale of impeachments and defections for many political gladiators. Good Morning Nigeria did not just watch from the ringside. Kingsley and Shehu anchored the edition which x-rayed the situation with the cross-section of guests on site.
We're talking about the role of the judiciary in the impeachment process. Now it is clear from various decisions that the judiciary cannot be ousted. the Supreme Court has decided that, provided, of course, you follow, you do not follow the steps, sections, subsections 1 to 9 of Section 188 of the Constitution. But we have also seen a situation where court orders have been issued in the course of an impeachment, and those orders have been disobeyed or disregarded even by the chief judge of a state who is constituting the investigative panel. What does this say?
Absolute impunity. The institutions, the judiciary, the police, the army, and the security agencies, without integrity, no nation can survive. If the judiciary, that is the last hope of the common man, begins to disobey itself and begins to work against the interest of the Constitution, which is the highest law of the land, then there is nothing but anarchy. We have seen here in this country abuse of court processes. We have seen a government and governments, both at the state and at the federal level, willfully disobeying court orders. So unless we return back to the rule of law, we are heading to fascism or total anarchy. And once these things become the process of getting rotten, the decay is not immediately taken care of. It becomes irreversible. And because chaos spreads, we have seen copycats. One state sees something terrible happening. Immediately another says, oh, well, it was done in this state. Why can't we do it in our own state? So impunity begets impunity. It spreads. And before you know it, the whole settlement, the claddings of the system, the judiciary, the legislature, the executive, the claddings collapse. The independence of the judiciary is best seen when the judiciary is able to stand up against executive disorder.
Former President Obasanjo, there was an attempt in 2002 to get him impeached, that's to get him removed from office. Has the Nigerian legislature shown enough maturity with the exercise of the power of impeachment of the executive?
Well, this is a difficult question because of the importation of the word maturity. Because if I were to assess it on objective grounds, one would say that part of our problem consists, in fact, the major part of our problem regarding these issues of impeachment or removal consists in the ambiguity in which the powers have been stated in the Constitution. The Constitution, as it were, gives with one hand and takes with the other and leaves everything in a blurry state. It says that the legislature has power to remove, and then goes ahead to say that if they go through the steps that are stated in Section 188, subsections 1 to 9, that in Section 10, that no court should investigate, should challenge, should look into the question of how the panel went about its business or how the House eventually accepted what the panel did.
All right, Professor Hahe, thank you very much. Joe, let's have your thoughts on what is on the table right now. You've seen a gale of impeachments, and precipitating that, of course, you're seeing defections.
It makes us look very laughable in the Committee of Nations. Defections, let me start from there. It's a legitimate right of any elected representative to defect if they feel that, you know, where they are or the platform on which they were elected has been factionalized. You all know the familiar section of the Constitution, Section 60, subsection 1G. And when you look at defection, I mean, APC was the main beneficiary of the defections in 2014, 2015. They didn't challenge, they didn't go to court. The more the merrier, they were celebrating. What goes round comes round. 4 years circle. You now have a scenario where people are defecting from the governing party, and that should tell you a story. Usually the trend is to defect into the governing party because that's where the only party is. That's where you can have a share of the national cake. You can have appointments, you can have, be made ministers, chairman of board. But so when you now have a scenario where people are leaving the governing party to opposition, it then tells you a story that something is just not adding up.
Whichever side of the divide, due process must be followed in accordance with the rule of law. Well, a break beckons now. We'll be back.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiyi suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three
you are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah?
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Momo to come to chocolate rice made in Nigeria here. And see how it is made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
And now for the weather outlook for the rest of today, let's join the Meteorological Agency for the report.
Hello, I am Susan Opara with the weather forecast from the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. It's been hazy for quite some couple of days across the country, but now we are beginning to see some level of improvement in terms of horizontal visibility, especially along the fringes of the extreme northern parts of the country. However, dust plume has been raised from our source region, as you can see, but we do not expect much deterioration in terms of horizontal visibility from this plume. And that takes us to the weather expectation for Friday. Dust haze condition will prevail along the extreme northern part of the country with visibility values of 2 to 5 kilometers. However, this condition may likely prevail even around the central states down to the inland cities of the south, except for the coastal belt, where early morning mist may likely prevail. But by afternoon and evening hours, moderate dust haze conditions are likely over the coastal belt, while elsewhere within the country, conditions are expected to remain same as in the morning. And that's our bit from here. Thank you for watching and see you for more updates.
Thank you for staying with us, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We'll see you next week, God willing. So we're wishing you a beautiful weekend as we dig into more of the high moments of 2018 and review come Monday. I am Ruth Aguele.
And I am Kirian Umaya. Let's see you on Monday with more reviews of our major programs within the year. My name is Kirian Umaya. See you again on Monday.